Okay, thank you. Then I think we should begin.
Beginning this meeting, I would like to start. My name is Georgi Tsakai. I'm the representative of the Office of Simple Solutions and Results. Today we are going to discuss a very important issues regarding the reform in the field of construction and architecture and urban planning. I would like to say that our office has been involved heavily in drafting and moving forward this reform. As you are aware, the reform was presented on the National Reforms Council and was supported by Mr. President, Prime Minister, and all the stakeholders of the National Reforms Council. I would like to thank the Ministry of Regional Development and the representatives who has been involved in this extremely important reform. And my special thanks to Elena Shuliak, who is the major mover and driver of this reform within the Parliament of Ukraine. I think that it will be a very good and interesting panel. And all those people regarding who has some sort of restrictions based on the COVID will get the recording of this meeting, and I hope that we will have a chance to discuss everything in the details. I would like also to introduce several people who are sitting on the right side.
Recording in progress.
On the right side from me, I would like to say a few words. I think that this is very important that now we have here the head of new formed Urban Planning Control Department, DIAM, Simeon Krivanos, and we all share a very good understanding that this reform is consistent with the three major pillars. One of them is IT sphere, the second is the legislation changes, and the third, and also very important, the return of the body which is controlling the sphere. And you know that there was a very discredited body named DABI, which was killed by the ministry together with all the stakeholders, and was established new formed body DIAM, with the head is Simeon Krivanos. And I would like to special thanks the Deputy Minister of Regional Development, Ms. Kozlovskaya, which is together with us. Also, she is one of the key players in doing such great reform here. I would like to give the word to Elena Shulak, which will present to us the major aspects of the reform, and then I think that we will continue with the questions and answers regarding this. Thank you to everyone who has joined this meeting, and hope to your interaction. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, dear Georgi. Hello, dear colleagues. We have the interpretation, right? So everybody hears me now. Thank you for an opportunity today to present our developments. For almost a year, with this team, which includes not only the team of the Parliament, not only the team of the Ministry of the Development of Territories and Communities, but also its experts and analytical centers like the Simple Solutions and Outcomes Office, and such NGOs, professional and expert ones like the Confederation of the Constructors and Developers, the Engineers, Designers, the Union, which is concentrating the expert organizations around itself, some of the developers who are working in Kiev region, but in the regions of our country. We are discussing for almost a year and presented at different platforms of the National Reforms Council and directly the platform of the Ministry of Development of Territories and Communities. Then at the platform of the committee, we've presented a huge reform which has a significance for Ukraine, because the corrupt component, where the Ukrainian state officials have earned providing permits and licenses and exploiting the premises and buildings, is more than 2 billion euro per annum. This is the huge sum of money for the economy of our country. This is the huge sum of money the business is affected by. So to change these rules of the game, we have worked on the legislative level to create such conditions when corruption in fact would become impossible. We are providing several important points. First of all, digitalization, total digitalizations of all of the processes, where all of the participants of the construction are working in the same digital field. Secondly, we take the authorities from the bodies which used to be monopolies. We take this function of the monopoly and give it to the private market, how it is working in the European countries, in the United States of America, and even in the same country of Australia. The experts from the Simple Solutions and Outcomes Office have researched where you can see how it is working in other countries. We also have closely studied the foreign experience to implement it in Ukraine. Well, of course, we understand that on the one hand, the simplification of the procedures should take place with increased responsibility of all of the process participants, and it should be foreseen in the legislation. Now I'd like to give the floor to Natalia Kozlovska, who is the Deputy Minister of the Regional Development. We have a small presentation where we would like to share some of the developments, discuss them, to get some support from you for the anti-corruption reforms to take place in Ukraine. Thank you so much. I thank sincerely Ms. Olena for the introduction. Hello again, dear colleagues. I would like to tell more details about the essence of the reform itself, which consists of the following. As for now, all of the permits and licenses, the documents which should be given by according to the acting legislation for the construction of the objects, are given in the certain authority, while considering the documents in the paperback form, which increases significantly the risk of the corrupt component of this consideration. The essence of the reform is the following, how it was mentioned by Olena in the total digitalization of the permits process. We do understand that the maximum of transparency in the decision-making process can be achieved exceptionally through the digitalization of this process. So some of the state officials not working on the documents really can get rid for 100% of the corrupt risk. We do understand that not a single investment for the risky market, for the non-transparent procedures will ever come. So that is why we are trying to change those approaches for ourselves as well. As for now, through the implementation of this experiment on digitalization of the majority of processes while you get the licenses and permits, so we have already achieved some of the positive feedback from the market. What does it witness about? That if you are a fair and honest customer and have all of the transparent documents for the land lot or the land parcel, and you're trying to construct what is correspondent to the acting legislation, then you need to have green light for the implementation of your investment. So the documents will be checked for the correspondent of the acting legislation through the verification in all of the available registers. And if the available registers tell us that you plan to invest and to construct and what you do is correspondent to the acting legislation, you'll be green lit. Without any additional consideration of the state officials, you will get the right to provide construction works. Altogether, we are saying that in the process of the construction there can take place some of the violations. So let us not forget about the system of the control of the construction process. We do understand precisely that at this stage we also should provide the procedures during the control and checks should be rather peculiar and precise, and not to check all of the documentation which has already had some expert conclusions and certain outcomes of the officials who have done that and had the right for that. For instance, if you have the positive conclusion of the expertise about your construction, who already have checked all of the chapters of your documentation for the correspondence to the regulations and legislation, not a single state official will have the right to consider the capacity or its lack for your documents. You have already the positive conclusion of the expert organization, so not a single state official can have the right to interfere. The only thing he can have right to pay attention to should check whether this object is constructed according to the design documentation. As for the exploitation of the premises, at this stage, we are trying to digitalize this process, and we foresee personal responsibility of all of the participants of the process for the quality of the object, the architect who designed this project, the inspector of the technical monitoring who controlled the process of the construction, the external control in the format of the control authorities who provided the permanent control on the construction process, are providing their e-digital signatures under the act of the exploitation, approving that whatever was constructed is correspondent to the design documents which were announced in the beginning, and automatically this system, without any state official, provides the registration of the putting into operation and into production. In our opinion, this approach towards the digitalization of the processes will significantly simplify the procedure of the investment coming. It will simplify the lives of all of the investors who are trying to realize themselves in this sphere. Providing the intermediary stage in this sphere, what did the state of Ukraine do in this interim period? We got rid of the corrupt authority which was working in the incomprehensible way in the paperwork. We have implemented the digitalization of the interim stage as the decree of the Cabinet of Ministers as the experiment. The new authority which is working in this sphere, and I will give the floor to the head of this authority who will tell in more details about the transparency of this work, was taken for work and hired the people who have just perfect reputation for the reform which we are implementing now to have all of the chances to be implemented as best as possible. Semen, please, the floor is yours. Hello everybody, it is so pleasant to present to the presentees, respected presentees, all of the achievements which we were capable to achieve together with the ministry. So our Commission has begun its functioning since the 15th of September, according to the decree of the Cabinet of Ministers. Before that, beginning with the 20th of June 2021, we have conducted some open competitions where we had the task to form 30% of the staff of the personnel of the inspection. Altogether, there are 660 people there, and we needed to hire totally new people, that is 30% at least, to totally launch the Commission functioning as the legislation claims. For the procedure of the participants in those competitions, we allowed the internationally acknowledged organization, International Development Law Organization, the experts of which, within the international technical assistance, have provided some assistance as for the competition selection. An important achievement which we have here, according to the outcomes of those competitions, is the following: that not a single former employee of the State Construction Inspection, which has been liquidated, is not working in the State Inspection of Architecture and City Building. As Natalia Viktorievna has mentioned, those are totally new staff and personnel. And out of all of the people who were hired into the Commission, then it's not more than 10% who were at least at the public service at all, which allowed us to get the highly professional experts and very well motivated personnel of the Commission, the main inspectors who are providing those functions. During the work of the State Inspection of Architecture and City Buildings since the 15th of September, we've considered more than 15,000 of the documents submitted by the customers. And what's important, the documents are provided in the e-form exceptionally, and we lately managed to achieve the situation that the objects which were provided in the paperback form are now given to the centers of the administrative services, which digitalize them documents and provide them to the inspection in the digitalized form only. So the inspection does not work with any of the customers at all directly. Everything is done electronically, so almost 99% of the applications of the customers are processed by the inspection during the first 24 hours, which is important in the fight with the corruption, because certain prolonging and delays which took place before the inspection has begun its work have led to the main corrupt risks, when the customer submitting the documents could not get the service during several months and was obliged to get to the intermediaries to speed up the solution and to pay black money, bribes. What's important also there, to avoid those corrupt risks, we took a decision to process the documents during the 24 hours. This could be either positive or negative decision, but it should be taken during the 24 hours. That's about the permits and licenses. As for the putting into the action and the use of the premises and the built objects, as for the putting them into operation, this procedure foresees the review of this object, so it shouldn't last longer than 72 hours. It used to take several months before. So since the moment of the application submitted, this same day our call center calls the customer that the inspectors are ready to review the object, to check whether it's correspondent to the construction norms and design documentation, to go there and to review it. Even the next day the inspectors are going there, review the object, provide the documents, and they take the decision about certification not later than in 72 hours. Or if the object is not built enough, they refuse. But it's so important to make it transparently, quickly, without any invented reasons for the refusal within the anti-corruption fight. And it is so important because we're openly discussing and publishing all of the reasons for refusal at our web portal. Every customer can get acquainted with those reasons and provide his or her remarks. We also have the hotline where you can leave your messages, you can share your opinions, you can leave your complaint if there are certain illegal actions done. But it's really nice that during its existence not a single corrupt risk was found in the work of the inspection. Not a single accusation that the employees of the inspection could delay or prolong the consideration of the documents, or, God forbid, would claim some bribes, have never happened so far. So it's so important for us to feel the full support of the ministry, and we are awaiting for the law draft 5655 to be adopted, which would allow permits automatically. Because as of today, the system has been created which allows to get the document, but also we need the participants of the state official directly. Though I need to remark that some of the documents, as for now, are registered automatically already. The system is permanently studying itself and improving itself, and more notifications and applications are registered about a certain category. The lowest category on the living quarters is registered automatically. Considering this positive experience of the automatic registration, together with the ministry, we are developing, and with the Simple Solutions office, we are developing the experimental procedure which would allow the registration automatically and the permits for the construction works up till the moment until the law draft is adopted on the we do hope that in this experimental or testing mode, we will be able to test the permits automatical mode as for the SS2 and SS3. It's so important for us to hear the feedback from you as for the work of the inspection, from you, from the businessmen, from the countries who are working on the territory of Ukraine, to understand whether we improved the conditions of the cooperation with the authority which provides the permits and licenses as for now, and for the business, whether those conditions have become more comfortable, convenient and transparent and foreseeable. So we're also awaiting further feedback, which would be also important, either to improve what's necessary to be improved, to take that into account, and to move on in the even more impressive results for the business, to have comfortable and convenient conditions to work for the honest and fair business, and to have more and bigger investments involved, and the most important thing for them, to never face corruption. Because I've already mentioned that publicly during my speeches, and I go on speaking about that the attempts of the shadow schemes which used to exist before the inspection was launched, unfortunately are now already smaller frauds, but they still try to impact this process and to prove the customers that something needs to be solved corruptly. Of course, it's not true. Those are usual frauds, and the customers electronically with the portal of DIA can download the documents and upload the documents which the inspection considers. If they are legal, they provide the positive solution. If there was a refusal, it does not mean that you need to do it in the corrupt way. You need to get rid of the drawbacks, to submit them again, and then to get the positive outcome. Please let all the foreign companies know that we are open for communication, open for the fight against corruption. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Olena.
I would like to say several words. I do think that the reform that we are talking now is extremely important. This is one of the major anti-corruption reforms. In general, to have an overview of the situation, which was several months ago, even though in Ukraine, was that there is two major steps when the person who would like to do the construction business is interacting within any governmental agency, or maybe three, but the majors are two. The first one is when the person wants to obtain, the company wants to obtain the permit for the construction, and the second is when wants to get the certificate of exploitation. And also within this process there can be the control measured by the agency who is regulating this. What we are trying to do now is to change all these things, all these three things here. And how? The first, we would like to introduce this system which will give a chance to obtain the permit within a seconds automatically. And if not, as Simeon mentioned, there is only 24 hours need to get an answer from the governmental body, this is okay or not, and what is the reason of the refusal, which was never yet, about even 2 months ago, to get such kind of refusal on time was a huge challenge. And the second part is when you are doing the construction, how the control is going on, and also how you are getting the certificate of exploitation. And by the world best standards, we have introduced a system where the third parties, authorized third parties who are going to obtain the authorization by the ministry, will start, like the company will hire such kind of the authorized company who will control all the process of the construction, and also will automatically, after the finishing of these control measures, will give them the certificate of exploitation. So in general, we are closing all the gaps, all the possibilities of the corruption here. So because of that, it was initiated by the ministry, by the Elena Shulak, by all others, that we would like to inform our international partners regarding the reforms that we are doing. And we would like to get the feedback from the businesses who are operating on the territory of Ukraine, if there are some additional bottlenecks or the problems they are facing. We would be happy to hear them, and it was very very warm words from the head of new established DIAM that he is ready himself to solve such kind of the problems immediately, because this is a systematic approach that we are going. So I think that I will get back to Natalia Kozlowska if she would like to add some words here, and then we can go to the session of the questions and answers. Natalia, is the...
Natalia, if you would like to add anything, yes. I would like to add a bit what we mentioned above with the following words. The reform is unavoidable, and we understand specifically that without changing the approach towards the involvement, maintenance, and the implementation of investments in Ukraine, it would be impossible to achieve any positive outcomes. That is why, for ourselves, we can see it as a component out of three parts. This is digitalization of the processes, the change of the authority, and taking and adopting of the main law draft 5655 and the auxiliary one 5887, which foresees not only digitalization of the processes but also responsibilities. That is why, understanding specifically and having deeper support of the government and the president in that, we do hope that all of our aspirations which we are mentioning will be achieved, and we will have rather specific transparent market in this sphere which will allow to provide high quality and speed to get investments, to develop the cities, and for the citizens to have high quality services in this sphere. That's it from me. Thank you so much. Then,
with your permission, I will go to the questions if they are. Please raise your hand. I will try to start. Ты выключил, да?
Да.
Okay, so thank you. Then let's move to the questions and answers. I would like, as a moderator, to ask the first question to the ministry. Я спрошу на...
I will ask in Russian if you allow me. Natalia, I would like to ask you the following, because rather often I can hear this question. What will be the role of the local authorities in this reform, first of all? And secondly, when we speak about the responsibility, could you tell more details about the responsibility we are speaking about for all of the people who are very cautious in the process of the illegal construction or the use of any resources at the local level? How will you control all of that, and which toolkit will you have for everybody to understand that the interests of the communities are protected in this process? We can see for ourselves the strengthening of the local self-government authorities in this reform. How can we implement that? It would be reasonable to compare how it is taking place for now to understand what an important role will be played by the local self-governance authorities in the control of everything which will take place on the territory of their cities. As for now, the local self-governance authorities, having the adopted city-building documentation, are almost not impacting the process of the creation or construction of everything which is taking place on the territories of their cities. And now, it will be the obligation of the local self-governance authorities to monitor everything which is constructed on the territory of the cities, and they will have the opportunity to quickly respond whatever is constructed illegally. What do I mean by illegally, and how they will be able to check that? It's very simple, taking into account that we're going through the digitalization of the processes. In case if the registers of the construction activities do not have any permits or licenses for a certain object which, in the opinion of the local self-governance authorities, is being constructed illegally, they will urgently initiate the check of this or that object. In case if this object has all of the permits in the register, and those registers are publicly open, anybody can use them, then the local self-governance authority understands that whatever is constructed is done legally. As for if they find illegal construction, they can even initiate the issue to get rid of this illegal construction sites. And it can be reflected in the process of the sanctions posed. We are re-updating the procedures, the sums of fines and approaches to the sanctions for those who are illegal constructors. Recently, we analyzed the innovations foreseen in the law draft on the responsibility. If you construct anything, for instance, at the architectural monument, and you provide the illegal construction there, I do emphasize illegal means that you don't have all the necessary permits registered according to the procedure electronically, then the sanction in this case is increased 5 times. In case if your construction is fully legal, you have the permits and the licenses, and they don't have a single right to come to you and to check you, to provide the check of anything for their own consideration. So we are fully changing the approaches to the roles of the local self-governance, strengthening their role in the work at the places as for all of the objects, and providing some of the obstacles to the abuse of their power against the illegal constructions. On the other hand, we can harshly sanction anybody who is trying to construct anything on the territory of the cities illegally, strengthening the criminal responsibility in this case and the administrative one, providing the fines. Thank you. Thank you, Natalia. I would like to ask the same question to Simon Krivonos. Simon, you say that your service is now processing the questions during the first 24 hours. And in fact, you can quickly respond all of the requests which you are getting. Could you please tell what has changed now to do that? Because in reality, just a couple of months ago, when the Bureau was working, unfortunately it was not working. So which changes you were able to implement during this couple of months for the system to work properly? And we can hear it from the market, some of the positive feedback, that it's very quickly, without a single corruption point, they can get some of the services. What did you do for that? First of all, as I already mentioned, this is the staff and personnel question, which is so important because the restoration and renewal of the personnel allowed us to involve totally transparent new people in the inspection work who consider the submitted documents during the 24 hours, which allowed us to achieve such an outcome first of all. As they are not interested to create artificial obstacles and provide refusals to stimulate the customer to search for any other shadow ways to solve their issue. And they provide the objective consideration of the documents. This exactly allows us to consider and to process all the documents in the 24 hours and to provide the result and the outcome. It is so important to have the functioning of the unified state system in the construction sphere, which allows to provide the check of the documents submitted by the client partially. But we improve the system partially. So far it is automatic. What does it witness about? We can automatically check the data about the construction and the system and subsystem of risks, which automatically analyzes the submitted documents and provides the certain level of the risk. Low, medium or high, or critically blocking it when the documents cannot be even considered by the state official of the inspection and can't even be submitted to the inspection, just for instance because they announce about the new construction but they don't have the right for the land lot or the land parcel. The system will not just give those documents for consideration. So the automation of the processes allows to consider the documents during the 24 hours. It is very important that just in a fortnight, in 2 weeks before the inspection was launched, during the function of the previous inspection, which did not consider several thousands of documents, together with the Ministry of Regional Development and Digital Transformation Ministry, we've implemented the EQ of the consideration of documents. For instance, the documents which were submitted on the 1st of November and the 2nd of November, so the documents of the 2nd of November cannot be considered before the documents which were submitted on the 1st of November, which allows to consider the applications in the line, in the queue. The line is created automatically between the inspectors of the inspection, and in this case the inspector doesn't even know which client submitted these documents. He doesn't have enough even time to select some precise application which he likes more to consider, and which allows us to avoid corruption risks. If, for instance, the application of one client is considered during the day and another application can be considered for a month, it is totally unacceptable. If we'd like to consider anything during the 24 hours, we need to consider everything during the 24 hours. So the EQ totally blocks the corruption manipulation and the selection of certain applications and not consideration for the others, which helped us to fight against corruption at all. Now we even improve the creation of the queue when inspector just pushing the button, entering the system, can automatically randomly take the application for the consideration, and if he or she did not consider it during the 24 hours, for the next day they are again redistributed for other inspectors, even to avoid the corruption risk. Like, for instance, when the inspector did not consider the application, he can theoretically get in touch with the applicant and impact him or her as if he can take the positive or negative solution. So if the day is over, the documents are still not considered, they are automatically redistributed among other inspectors as well. And the automatical registrations of the notifications about the beginning of the construction works helps a lot, because this notification, I will make it more precise, are applied as for the objects with the different categories of complications, with their insignificant class of responsibility, SS1. Those are buildings, residents, smaller ones, up to 2 stories, and smaller objects, which are constructed according to the construction passport. The system automatically analyzes and provides the outcome without the participants of the state official up to 10 minutes since the moment of this application. And this number of documents is increasing all the time thanks to the ministry, because we are permanently improving the risk assessment system, and the improvement of this risk system allows us to automatically register the submitted documents. And what's more important, what's also important, thanks to the MPs and the ministry, we managed to achieve the proper level of the remuneration for the newly appointed employees of the inspectorate, because this is really a competitive level of the salary now, which allows to avoid corruption risks. Now together we are working with the ministry and the budget committee to provide the proper level and for the following 2022, and we do hope to have support from the MPs. The proper level of the salary, the market level, the competitive level allows us to get rid of corruption risks in the construction sphere. Thank you. Thank you, Simone. And with the last question, if you have any questions, of course, we are happy to answer the questions as well. But Natalia, I'd like to pose this question. I do congratulate you, because everybody was waiting for this as well. And now I have the following question. Well, now, after this law is adopted, we will be able to say that together with the head of the newly created authority, you're killing the newly created authority, because it won't have anything to do left. Because very often we don't see those reformers who are killing or murdering the authority which they are managing. So could you please tell, you are giving the function of the registration and automating this process. Putting into the use will be done by the third party, the state won't have this function, and the control function is given to the local level. So you decentralized all the functions of the inspectorate so much that the inspection itself either will be closed or at least will have a very little function left. Could you tell in more details what you will do with this authority further on? Yes, thank you, Georgi, for the question. As for now, the inspection is such a nice platform for us, which allows to see live what we are trying to achieve. Digitalization of the processes foresees a very flexible shift from one quality or lack of quality of the processes and documents to another level. The inspection, in our opinion, is the authority which should be working. We are also providing some of the authorities to it, taking into account, Georgi, what you mentioned, the registration of the permits and putting into action and putting into operation are almost automated. The control functions are given to the legal entities and the local self-governance authorities. We redistribution the monitoring function, and the inspection has the pre-appeal consideration and the processing of the documents which have some of the restrictions, for instance, classified documents, and also the processing of the documents which foresees the construction of the sophisticated objects like underground, complicated engineering objects. So we try those objects and authorities to become the appeal authority. What does it witness about? It witnesses about the fact that if you cannot automatically register the permit or put it into operation because the system does not automatically register it, having some of the restrictions or bans, for instance, you had the court verdict about the ban of the construction of anything at your land lot and it was not introduced into the register, the functions of the solution of this situation, because if not to go to the court about each of those cases, it will be at the authority which we can help the economic entities to solve it automatically. This is what we can see, because the outcomes which can be seen by the State Inspection of Architecture and City Building witness that they can consider this situation quickly, they can solve it rapidly and help the business to implement their object without providing any obstacles. So we really hope and have certain expectations from this authority for its transparent, high quality and quick work can help further on to have it as an authority of the appeal consideration of the documents. Thank you so much. First and foremost, I would like to emphasize again that this reform can work because a very big piece of work is done by the Ministry of Digital Transformation together with the TAPAS project. Of course, the ministry, the inspectorate, and such people of Olena Shulak, we couldn't work without them. Our little role is there as well. We are proud that we take part in that. In this reform, so I consider that the today's session, if there are no additional questions left, we can finalize it. I'd like to express my gratitude towards everybody, and we would promise that we'll do everything possible for this reform to be successful. So thank you to all of the participants, good luck, goodbye.